out of my building, out of my where we're going, even just where my youth. I'm so in the mood to have fun, so I'm really looking. I was really isolated and my smoke started dissipating. I actually call it like I was spiraling. I am the real Venus de Milo. And my channel is a chance for me to share my story, my life experiences as a single, extra-abled woman. And I hope that as I share my story with you, I teach you something and you teach me something. If that sounds good to you, then subscribe to my channel below. So I am still doing so much better. For the last few days, I have literally kept my windows open day and night. And I still feel like I'm detoxing smoke out of my building, out of my apartment, out of my body. But tomorrow's my birthday and I'm turning 41. So I've got a lot of, well, I've been doing a lot of contemplating about that. And the last year of my life being 40, going deeper into my 40s, and yeah, it's been good. So I'm gonna sign off for now, but I am going to be spending time with one of my friends tomorrow. Tomorrow is my actual birthday. And so tomorrow I will add more to this vlog about what I've been thinking about and what I'm learning and where we're going, even just where my YouTube channel is going and everything. So it's Friday night right now. I wonder if you can hear in the distance. That's a party. Somebody's having a party right now, which is like practically unheard of because everything's shut down almost, and like people are still social distancing. So way to go. I am so in the mood to have fun, so I'm really looking forward to seeing my friend tomorrow. All right, I'll check in with you guys then. Hi again, you guys. I am now 41 years old. 40 wonderful. The day before yesterday, I celebrated my birthday with my friend Jessica. We did a little photo shoot in the park. The things that I've learned in this year of my life, age 41 or turning 41, has a lot to do with exactly 1 year ago, close to my 40th birthday, I almost died. So basically, the short version of this is that in about the end of 2017, I started having a midlife crisis, which is so typical of about to turn 40. I think there's something, and maybe it's societal, maybe it's like a subliminal societal message sent to you that turning 40 is like the end of your youth, and it just kind of, I don't know, I feel like 40, spherical lanterns just to brighten up my living room a little bit. Yay. Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday, Jenny.
This is my friend Jessica. We've been friends since we were like 20 years old. And I'm 41. It was really nice to have a friend to spend the day with. I've known Jessica for almost 20 years, if not more than 20 years. We met in college. And I think the number one thing that I am learning in this season is the value of true friends. Even though we have to be socially distanced, it is so important right now for us to be connected to those who love us, that we know have been there through thick and thin, and people that have shared many seasons of our lives with us. I felt it was imperative that I reach out to my friends and really connect, because it has been too long of a season where we can just write off that we need human interaction. I think I've gone for too long just thinking, we are socially distancing, so it gives me an excuse to not reach out to my friends or to not really worry about how many people are in my life or whether I'm being social. And even if it means one person at a time that's not showing symptoms or doing, a phone call or a video chat, it is so important for our mental health. And I've learned that it's for my mental health to be connected to my friends. There are many layers to what I'm constantly learning in my life, just being who I am, being a woman, being an extra-abled woman, being a minority woman, meaning that I'm extra-abled and a woman, being single, which is its own label in this world. Societally, there's this message that 40 is like this epic turn in your life, which I believe it is. I mean, it's sort of the mid point in your life if you're planning on living, 80, 90 years, which I am. And it kind of gets you thinking about what was and what will be. Anyway, as I was about to turn 40, I was living in Miami. And prior to that, I lived in Washington State my whole life. And I was just in this spiral of thinking, like, why am I here in Florida? Like, what am I supposed to be doing with myself? And I was having a hard time finding friends there in Florida that I really connected with. And so I felt like this tornado kind of came into my life of confusion, of like not really knowing where I was supposed to be, what the next steps were. It was almost like I saw 40 as this cliff, like this cliffhanger, like I had to jump and I didn't know where I was going to land. So I decided that so I'm like 38 at this point, and I decided that I needed to leave Miami, and I decided to have no home and just travel the world. That was my goal. I had enough money in the bank to do this and the freedom to do this. And I thought it was such a great idea. And so my first stop was Sweden, and I didn't know where I was going to go after that. So I arrived in Sweden and I had lodging set up for 2 months. And this was in early June of 2018. And I thought, I'm just going to hang out here for 2 months and just see what Sweden has to offer and learn from being in Stockholm, Sweden. And 8 days into being in Sweden, I had a major mental breakdown. Like I hadn't slept properly for days on end. And I just kind of hit this wall in my life where I couldn't see my future. And the only thing that I knew was my past. And I just didn't know where to go and where to turn. I was alone in Sweden. I had gone there by myself. And I seriously felt like if I proceeded staying there, that I could die, that I could have a major mental breakdown, that I could have a stroke, because I was so sleep deprived and so at the end of my rope that I could hardly see straight or think straight. I was just crying day in and day out. And I recognized in that time that a huge part of that was the dynamics between my father and I, and just kind of feeling like that relationship had hit a wall and I couldn't quite understand it, but I just didn't know what to do. But I felt like that needed to be repaired. I felt like whatever misunderstanding was there needed to be repaired. So this led me to cut my Sweden trip short and literally cancel everything and fly back to Washington to stay with my family. And I just thought that was the right idea. So I ended up staying with them for 7 months, living in my parents' house. And at the time, it was literally like I did not know where home was. And that was the only home that had been consistent throughout my life. And it was the only place I knew to go. Oh gosh, this is emotional. It was my childhood home. It had always been a place that I could go when I needed to kind of regroup. And so that's what I did. And nothing was as it seemed there. My time home, although I felt that it reconnected me with, some versions of myself that I felt I was losing, it also was extremely stressful, and it was kind of damaging to be there, honestly. So 7 months after being there, I moved back out on my own. And the first apartment that I moved into, I hated. It was suburbia, and I realized, I'll give you the short version, I hate suburbia. I hated it. It felt like a death to city culture that I was used to. And it felt like I just felt dead inside living in the suburbs. So I broke my lease there, and I moved back to the city that I had lived in all of my adulthood up until I moved to Miami, which I'm going to leave anonymous just because I've had some stalkers and I don't want to invite anybody to be stalking me here where I live. So I live in a city in Western Washington. I'll just tell you that. And this place feels like home. And I moved here like a little over a year and a half ago, right out of my parents' house. And as soon as I found home again, it was like, ugh, like my whole world could just relax. And I also right away started having health issues, which I believe came from the stress of that whole situation. Like, I can't blame it on one thing or one person or one entity. It was the whole kit and caboodle of leaving Miami, going to Sweden, not really knowing where I fit in there, and then coming back home and having the stress of that, and just kind of realizing that that home wasn't really home anymore, meaning like my childhood home where I grew up. A lot of things had changed, or my perspectives had changed, and it just wasn't a healthy place for me to be anymore. So that brings me to last year's birthday. All of my health issues came to an apex literally on my 40th birthday. So just a few days after I turned 40, I went out dancing with my friends, and I ended up hemorrhaging from my uterus, which I had already known that I had uterine polyps, and that I was signed up to get surgery. But that's the whole thing. Like, I'm gonna link a video right here of the things that had happened to me when I was supposed to sign up for surgery. There was a major issue that happened. To keep it short, basically, I was sexually assaulted by a doctor right before I was supposed to go into surgery. And so all of this created a huge amount of darkness and stress around my 40th birthday. And I literally felt like I was walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And as you guys know, if any of you know Psalm 23, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff comfort and protect me. And honestly, I think I'm still alive right now because of my faith, because of just holding on to the foundation of God being with me. And boy, did I have to hold on for dear life in that time of having to go through that surgery and facing the issue of the immorality of the doctor that I was having to interact with, and just the downturning of my life and just kind of recognizing that someone who I thought had always loved me was actually rather abusive and narcissistic in my life and had become more and more so. And more than anything, I think what I have realized this year in my life after processing nearly dying and not only nearly dying, but also in that season experiencing something really traumatic, and how that put me into fight or flight, and how it just kind of robbed me of a lot of peace in my life and a lot of well-being, and kind of the dark characters. Like whenever you are hurting and bleeding, that's when that's when the wolves show up and are like, ooh, you're hurting. I want, they're sniffing around there. It's the wolves that are looking for the wounded to prey on. And at that time I was. And so some wolves kind of creeped into my life at that time. And I feel like this year has just been a year of separating the wolves from the sheep. And I know I am a lamb. I'm not perfect, but I am in the flock. I'm in God's flock. I am always, he is my shepherd and I am his lamb. And so I have to be very wise about who is a sheep and who is a lamb in my life. And I think that this year has been a huge season of learning who are the sheep and who are the lambs in my life, which is a rude awakening, because when someone you love who has been a fixture in your life is revealed as a wolf, whoa, is that a revelation. I am Venus de Milo. I am not flawed. I am exactly who I'm supposed to be. But with these physical challenges in my life, these challenges have brought certain dynamics to my story. First of all, being that I think I've realized just this year that I've been passed around a lot. I think even in my birth, I was born into abusive circumstances. I was born to biological parents who were both addicts. My biological father was abusive to my birth mom. He actually beat her up on the day that I was born. I was born premature 1 month because she went into premature labor because he had punched her in the stomach and had physically hurt her. And so as soon as I was born, I was taken away by CPS, and then I was adopted by my parents, who I think did a really great job in my childhood. And their lifestyle and kind of their life philosophy has created sort of a tearing away from me to them, because I think that their life has kind of gotten this is the way I would describe it. It's like a rope. It started out really strong, but throughout time it has frayed. And instead of recognizing that the rope is fraying and we need to make it right, it's kind of this mindset well, what can we do about it? It's just broken and it's getting thinner, and that's what happens as time goes on. And I think that I'm learning that you don't have to have a frayed rope of a life. You can actually return the fibers to strength again, which requires you to be self-aware and kind of just take some time to recognize what has broken down and what needs to be rebuilt. And I'm constantly hitting the refresh button on my life, whereas some people in my life just haven't. And I think that that's sort of what separates the wheat from the dross in my life, is that exact thing. Inevitably, if one person is progressing and another person isn't, even if you love that person, there is going to be a tearing of the dynamics of your relationship. And that's basically what has been happening. And so this is what I would say to you guys. What I have learned is that you have to evolve as you please. You cannot hold your life back because someone you love dearly can't progress with you. And you just have to let it go and allow yourself to grieve. I mean, part of why I called 911 a few days ago is that I was grieving so deeply for the loss of certain relationships in my life that have been precious to me, that I never thought would progress to this point where I felt like for my well-being, I have to separate from them and go no contact. Like, it makes me so sad that if I allow myself to feel how sad I am about that, I literally will cry day in and day out for days on end until I go crazy. There is a foundation that I've been working on my whole adult life that I must continue to build, strengthen, and build upon. And the truth is that that foundation, that rock, is Christ. On Christ, the solid rock, I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. And I think that that is what I'm learning, is that I have to decipher between sinking ground, sinking sand, and the rock, and who has the rock beneath them and who doesn't, who's sinking sand and who isn't, and to not sink into the sinking sand of life just because I feel badly about not sinking because someone is insisting that I sink with them. Yeah, I will not drown for anyone else. And I think that that is a really good, healthy boundary. My hope, though, like the things that I really want to work on year 42 or year 41 of my life before I turn 42, is understanding how to remain and love people who you have had to set certain boundaries with, because there are certain people, like family, that aren't going anywhere. And so I need the wisdom to know how to navigate those relationships now that I have an idea of what I'm going through with them. And that there is now a new changed perspective of my role in their life and their role in mine. So that's what I'm learning. And also my goal for this year in YouTube is to continue sharing my story. I am hoping that my hope in that is to speak to and empower my people, my extra abled peeps out there. If you are extra abled, I love you and you're doing so great. And my plan is in the next few videos to do a series on like living independent, finances, being single and dating, and just topics around being extra abled that I've learned. Just some things that I've learned that hopefully I can pass on to you. And I hope you'll join me for that journey. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe below, like this video, please comment below if it's appropriate. And I will see you in my next video.